Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Stephanie Gregg with the Illinois State Museum. I am so excited today to spend some time with one of our scientists. Have you ever wondered what a scientist does at a museum? Let's find out what our archaeologist, Dr. Brooke Morgan, does. Brooke, what kind of science do you do?
Hi, Stephanie. I'm an archaeologist, and what that means is that I study people from the past through the artifacts, the things that they left behind.
Cool. So, what's the most interesting object that you've found?
That's a tough question. I think that some of the most interesting things I've found are things that are really, really old. So some of the things that I've worked on, some of the sites that I've worked on are over 10,000 years old, and they date to the last ice age.
That's pretty neat. How did you become a scientist?
I was always interested in learning about people and learning about the past, and I liked history, but I liked more of the deep history and the stories of people all over the world through time. And so I became an archaeologist by studying a lot, of course, but also just by learning about people, the different kinds of things they made through time, whether it was tools or their pottery or cooking vessels or art, all these things that make us who we are as people. I wanted to learn about those and learn about them from people all over the world and see how we're all kind of connected in a way.
That's neat. So archaeology is a science, but you also look at history and art and different artifacts like other sciences.
Yeah, that's right. It's really important to know a lot about different kinds of history and science in order to do archaeology and learn as much as we can from the artifacts that people leave behind.
So people could find a cell phone thousands of years from now and learn a little bit about us today?
I think so. I mean, everything that we leave behind, all of our trash, that's going to be part of the archaeological record, which is artifacts that are left by people who made and used them and then discarded them.
Cool. What do you like best about your job?
Well, there's so many things I like about my job as an archaeologist. And of course, it's fun to be out excavating. You get to, get dirty. You get to be, kind of the first one to see sometimes artifacts that haven't been touched for hundreds or thousands of years. And that part's always exciting, but that's only a really small part of what we do. One of the things I like best about my job actually is working in the lab. It's when you bring all the things from the excavation into the lab, you get to clean them off, you get to start inventorying them. That's basically making a list of what you found when you were excavating, cleaning them, and learning more about them. And a lot of times that's where really exciting discoveries are made because you have more time to sit down and study the things that you removed during the dig.
Cool. So you use the word excavation. That's a pretty big word.
That's right.
Could you tell us what that means?
Sure. So excavation, or an archaeological excavation, is just a big word for a dig. And so, when you go out and you are excavating, you're digging, you're removing dirt or soil, and you're mapping everything, and it's a very methodical and scientific process.
What kind of tools do you use to help you with your job?
So in the field or at the excavation, we have a lot of tools to help us move the dirt, pick up the dirt, and learn things about the dirt and the artifacts that we find. So I've got some of my tools here, and some of these things are used in the excavation. We have right over here our trowels, and so these are what help us dig, and they help us dig in a really controlled, slow, and purposeful way. So sometimes you use shovels, but a lot of times we use smaller tools like this to hand dig and make sure we're not missing anything. So that's what trowels are for.
So you can find little objects.
Yeah, that's right. We also have brushes. Brushes can be important if we find fragile things like animal bone or shells. And sometimes when we find those things, we don't want to, dig really quickly and potentially break them or mess them up. So we'll dig a little bit, and then we use the brush to brush around and we call it expose it. And so we get the dirt away from the entire item. Then we can take a picture, we can draw a map, and then we can safely remove the whole thing from the dirt in order to keep it from breaking.
So you've discovered bones, and our paleontologist has discovered bones also. So what's the difference between paleontology and archaeology?
That's a really good question and a really important question. So they're both sciences that dig or excavate, but paleontologists study animals and plants and things in the fossil record, and archaeologists study people. So we are studying things like artifacts, things that people leave behind. We don't study dinosaurs. Paleontologists do. We like dinosaurs. Who doesn't like dinosaurs? But archaeologists focus on people and the things that people made and left behind.
So could you tell me what your favorite object is?
Sure, and I do have a lot of objects that I really like, but I picked some today that are really unique and I think just give us such an amazing example of, or insight or information into people who lived in the past.
Cool.
So these are some of my favorite items. They are little figurines, and these are about 700 or 800 years old.
That's really old.
Yeah, and so two of them, this one and this one, they're made from stone, and the one on the end here is made from ceramic. And I think they're just so incredible because we get to learn things about how people saw themselves, and we get to learn things that we don't always see in archaeology because only certain things are left behind. Other things, even if they're left behind, they disintegrate or decompose. They things like plants and fibers and other things like that, they don't stay in the archaeological record. They break down over time.
Gotcha. So disintegrate means to break down.
Exactly. And so we don't get to see things like the kinds of clothing that people had, or maybe the kind of blankets or shoes or things that are made from what we call perishable items. That's items that don't last. They're not hard like stone or pottery. But what we can see on these little figurines are different kinds of clothes.
He's got pants, or it looks like a belt.
He's wearing something around his waist. And then on this one in the middle, we can actually see his hairstyle. So we can see that he's got his hair kind of like up on top of his head, maybe wearing some sort of top knot. And he's also got hair on the sides right here that's maybe a little bit shorter. We don't have photographs of people. This is long, long before photography was invented. And so we don't really know people's hairstyles or clothing. And so these are kind of a way for us to understand those a little bit better. This one on the very end has some ear piercings, and also you can see her hairstyle as well. So we think these two are male figurines, and this is a female figurine based on their bodies and the kinds of things that they're wearing. So I think it's just a really cool look at how people saw themselves, and also how they wore their hair or dressed, 700 or 800 years ago.
Thank you so much, Brooke. It was really cool to learn about archaeology. Could you see yourself as an archaeologist one day? Maybe one day in the future, I'll get to interview you here. Thank you so much, and happy learning.